Tom Lee understands Wall Street. Tom Lee also understands crypto. And so he's putting these two things together, and he's figured out a mix to bring to the market and say, hey, there's a hole here. People want this, but no one's done it yet. So I'm gonna be the first one to do it.
Pomp points out that Tom Lee has a unique edge. He understands both Wall Street and crypto, and he knows how to bridge the two worlds. Lee identifies gaps in the market and fills them, often becoming the first to articulate ideas that resonate widely. But when it comes to Ethereum, Pomp is up front. He doesn't own it anymore. In December 2023, he famously sold his Ethereum for Solana when Solana was trading around $70. Today, Solana trades near $200, validating the timing of his decision. Still, he emphasizes that Bitcoin outperformed both Ethereum and Solana during key periods, underscoring why he views Bitcoin as the ultimate benchmark.
Did Ethereum go up and Tom Lee realized that? Or did Tom Lee say Ethereum was going to go up and then Ethereum followed, right? I think that one of Tom Lee's greatest assets, I think he's incredibly smart. I really like him. You start to do these things like Tom Lee understands Wall Street. Tom Lee also understands crypto. And so he's putting these two things together, and he's figured out a mix to bring to the market and say, hey, there's a hole here. People want this, but no one's done it yet. So I'm gonna be the first one to do it. Now, in terms of Ethereum's prospects, I don't hold Ethereum, right? So forget what I'm saying, just watch what I'm doing. I infamously sold my Ethereum for Solana in December of 2023. Solana was at like $70. I think when I made kind of the big decision, I had started buying it somewhere in the 40s.
Solana is around 200 today.
Right. So again, it's all relative. Buying Bitcoin at certain points during that time period has outperformed Ethereum and Solana, right? So it all kind of goes back. Andrew Keys, somebody who has been around for a long time, I really respect. He went on CNBC when he announced his Ethereum treasury strategy, and although maybe I think he was being a little bombastic in this comparison, I think he said something like Ethereum has outperformed Bitcoin 50x since Ethereum's like ICO. Okay. But that wasn't really available to most people in the market. Like it was a, if you know thing. It was basically like a private seed round deal. But again, it all goes back to over time, what is the long-term, trend of these things? And in my personal view, which these guys may disagree with me on, but in my personal view, I think that Ethereum will have a very hard time growing in value in Bitcoin-denominated terms. And as I've been talking about for months, if not years now, this idea of Bitcoin rate of return is what I am looking at. I am personally trying to understand what are the assets that are going to outperform Bitcoin in Bitcoin terms.
Historically, September is known as a weak month for equities and Bitcoin. This pattern has become so widely accepted that many investors treat it as a certainty. But Pomp argues that when everyone knows something, it's often already priced in. And that's when surprises happen. For example, August 2025 marked the first time in history that Bitcoin had a down August in the year after a halving. If history was supposed to guarantee August gains, this broke the rule. Could September do the opposite? Surprise to the upside?
So if my hurdle rate is Bitcoin, I need something that's going to outperform that. And I don't think that over long periods of time, any altcoin is going to be able to do that. Now, will you find periods of time, 1-3 years? Sure. I'm not a trader. I don't want to be in there making decisions. I want to buy something today and hold it for as long as possible. One of the things that I like to ask people sometimes, who is somebody who you've heard say something that really stuck with you, and why did it stick with you? And for me, one of the answers would be Ken Langone did an interview with Joe Lonsdale of 8VC. And in the interview, Ken Langone said that his average holding period for his portfolio, the average holding period was 42 years. I aspire to be able to say that one day, right? Some really, really long holding period. So what that means is you got to be able to buy things that have a long-term value kind of accretion to them, right? And I think that is, again, from my investing philosophy, from my perspective, I think that Bitcoin, more so than anything else in the entire crypto ecosystem, is most likely to have resilience and to be anti-fragile and continue to appreciate over a 30, 40-year time period. I don't know what happens to the other ones. Some of them are going to win. Some of them aren't going to win. There's going to be competition. There's going to be upgrades. There's going to be improvements, whatever. Anything that I've ever done outside of Bitcoin, I look at it in terms of it is something that is a more short to medium term expression of a view, more so than anything where I'm going to hold it for a long period of time. And I think that is, that's the question, right? Is these other altcoin treasures, not just Ethereum, there's now Solana ones and many others. What happens over the long run? Nobody knows, right? I would argue that there's plenty of people who have predicted the demise of Ethereum as the second largest blockchain for a long time. Hasn't really happened, right? Doesn't mean that Ethereum's outperforming Bitcoin in Bitcoin terms, but it also doesn't mean that Ethereum's going to go to zero, right? And has anyone built anything that's bigger from a market cap basis? No. So maybe one of the lessons is like first or second mover advantage is really powerful because it was able to capture a lot of capital and a lot of attention and make a lot of progress and developers and all this stuff. Because the first one that was ever created is the biggest. The second one ever creates the second biggest. That could change. But right now, actually being early seems to have been an incredibly important part of being successful over the long run in terms of getting scale. I have 75% confidence on what I'm about to say. So I'm going to take the intellectual soft route and say I have a escape here because there's 25% of me thinks that what I'm about to say may not be true, but 75% confidence. September's going to be an up month for stocks in Bitcoin. Why? Everyone thinks it's going to be a down month. The second everyone gets off sides and thinks something's going to happen, immediately I start thinking maybe the opposite has higher odds. Now, again, doesn't always work, right? There are times where people have heard me. I had a similar thought when nobody thought they could balance the budget. I said, ooh, there's probably higher odds that they could balance the budget than people are giving it credit for because everyone is so convinced it's impossible, right? I don't think that's true, right? So I saw what was happening, right? I changed my mind. I don't think we can get to a balanced budget. September up, that's not that crazy, right? Especially because we were down in Bitcoin from the all-time high on September 1st. So our entry price into September is much lower. So I think that we could have a up September and a up Bitcoin because one, you got that entry price. Two is you're going to get the rate cuts. And I do think that that'll be pretty bullish. And then three is I think that there's a lot of people who just are convinced like, oh, it's always down. Was the first down month for August in the year after a halving in history for Bitcoin? I think that's true. So like, well, August is always up in the year after a halving, right? So for 15 years that's happened. Well, it didn't happen. So September, right? Could we get the opposite effect? Again, 75% confidence, like that's pretty high, but I'm not 100% confident in that. And so I just think that people, when you start to see people regurgitating the same thing, I see people all over the internet, September's down, September's down, September's down. Like, well, what if it goes up? Well, why would it go up? Well, you have interest rate cuts, people are off sides, all this stuff. Like, okay, that could be interesting. So I do think that people just got to be very careful with looking at history and saying this always happens. Usually by the time people start to identify this always happens, usually is about the time where this always happens becomes that used to happen. Now we're doing something else.
History shows us that first movers often retain their dominance. Bitcoin as digital money and Ethereum as programmable money have both captured massive market share. But when measured in long-term resilience, store of value properties, and ability to endure decades of change, Pomp believes Bitcoin stands alone. At the same time, market psychology reminds us never to assume history repeats exactly. September may not always be a down month. Rate cuts, contrarian positioning, and lower entry points could set the stage for a rally.